Y vamos a empezar ya con Scott Schnaars. Él es director general de Batchville para EMEA. Es una plataforma líder de gamificación a nivel mundial. Tiene clientes Oracle, Autodesk, Bell Media, y lo que hacen es ayudar a medir y a influir en el comportamiento y la participación de los usuarios. O sea, que de comportamiento de usuarios saben muchísimo. En sus 15 años ha ayudado a vendedores internacionales, a grandes vendedores de software, en su estrategia de comunicación, de engagement y de colaboración. Aquí nos va a dar las claves de cómo superar, de cómo combatir la crisis de la participación del usuario. Así que un fuerte aplauso para Scott Schnaars.
First of all, let's give a big round of applause to Sergio and his team for putting on Gamification World Congress 2013. They're doing a fantastic job, and this is a terrific show. The second thing, for the people here in the front, this is a subject that I'm really passionate about, and as a result of that, I tend to talk very, very quickly. And so I need everybody, if I go too fast, to kind of give me this sign to encourage me to slow down. I love zombies. I like zombie movies, I like zombie books, I like zombie TV shows, I like zombie games. So I was really excited when Cracked Magazine ran this article about the 5 scientific reasons that the zombie apocalypse is going to happen. And I thought that was kind of funny. But then HuffPo, like a pretty well-respected journalist website, said, no joke, the zombie apocalypse is coming. And then the Center for Disease Control in the United States created a zombie prep kit where you can go download all of the instructions on how to avoid being eaten by a zombie. And then I started to think about this, and what I discovered was that 14% of people, if you look around here, 14% of you believe that the zombie apocalypse is coming within our lifetime. So before you scoff at that and before you guys all giggle, I believe it's actually here. We did a study recently, and we found that 70% of employees are disengaged at work. So think about that number. 70% of employees are disengaged at work. Think about the cost associated with that level of disengagement. When it comes to loyalty, 60% of people have raised their hands and said, yes, I want to be loyal to your brand. Maybe not. Maybe that's not quite for me. They've walked away from that sense of loyalty to a particular brand. We're in the midst of an engagement crisis right now. We're in the midst of this experience where people just aren't engaging with the social tools that you're giving them. They're not engaging with the communities that you've developed in order to help one another. And certainly at work, they're definitely not engaged, as shown by that 70% number that we're seeing. 50% of CRM experiences fail. People have SharePoint and Jive and all of these tools that they've invested in, and nobody's using them. But I believe, and I think that everybody in this room believes, that gamification can be the cure for that engagement crisis. What I want to talk about today is how gamification can be the winning tool for you to get the highest amount of return on investment of anything else that you invest in. The good news is that these experiences are changing the way that we interact with our customers. Can I just see a quick show of hands, and it's hard to see the back of the room, but who is here thinking about gamification for a customer-facing experience? Okay. And who's here for an employee-facing experience? Okay, so a good even mix. So for the people who raised their hands and said, I'm thinking about this for a consumer-facing experience, my guess is that you're after 3 things right now. You want more customers, you want them to do more things, and when they're doing more things, you want them to buy more stuff. And that's pretty consistent amongst all of our customer base. When I think about a customer of ours like NBC's iVillage, it's a website geared toward baby boomer women. The challenge that they had was they wanted people to register, to go from that anonymous user to a registered user, because a registered user is significantly more valuable to NBC from an advertising standpoint. So we worked with them to create a program that encouraged people to log in and be that registered user when they're browsing the site versus an anonymous user. They acquired a new customer as a result of that. Once you have that customer, the question becomes, how do I retain them? How do I get them to do more things? We talk about Samsung Nation a lot because that program has been hugely successful for us, and it's gotten a tremendous amount of publicity in the press. Well, the goal for them was to get people to register their Samsung products, to write a review, to answer questions that they might have about that product, to watch videos, to share things out there. Getting people to do these non-transactional behaviors that still have a high level of value inside of an organization like Samsung. And then finally, if you're getting more customers and they're doing more things, we ultimately want to drive them to buy more stuff. So we worked with the company Sneak Peek, a flash deal site, and we helped them create this experience that based on your non-transactional behaviors, those behaviors had value that led to discounts, so that when you were shopping for a shirt and I was shopping for the same shirt, your price is going to be a lot lower than mine because Richard's done a lot more stuff on the Sneak Peek site than I have. Great job, Richard. It's changing the way that we work, too. It's changing the way that employees are interacting with different pieces of software inside of their organization. Just like a consumer-facing experience, employers want the same three things out of their employees. They want them to optimize the business processes that they have in place. They want them to learn more, and they want them to collaborate more effectively. When I think about optimization, when you think about any of the business processes that get laid out for you, essentially what you have is a roadmap, but people don't follow that roadmap, something like a sales process. I know that if I perform steps A through Z, I'm going to win a deal. But typically, salespeople get lazy and they tend to go other directions on different things and they tend to let things slip. Gamification can help people on track in order to get them to perform that process more effectively. Companies are spending literally billions of dollars right now on tools like SharePoint and Jive in order to get employees to collaborate. They believe in this vision of collaboration so much that they're spending billions and billions of dollars to get employees to do that. But when I go and I talk to companies, they tell me, oh, our SharePoint implementation only has a 25% adoption rate. Our Jive implementation only has a 15% adoption rate. How do we get this up? Well, certainly by driving people based on reputation and leveraging people's motivation for their status inside of that organization is a great way to drive this level of participation in these collaborative tools. And then finally, no company wants dumb employees. Companies spend an inordinate amount of money on learning tools, on content, on LMSs that are out there, and yet employees either don't use them or they don't use them to the full effect. And gamification can be a layer that sits on top of this, on top of these LMSs that drives that deeper level of participation inside of your organization to encourage your employees to become smarter and more articulate and more polished around the different kinds of programs that you have. So today, to fight the zombies, I want to recruit you. I want to recruit you into my engagement army and bring you into this mix and teach you how to sell this internally to your organization. Hopefully, at some point in the near future, every person in this room is going to need to go to their CFO or their CEO or somebody with the purse strings inside of the organization and is going to say, I want to apply this program into our experience. I want to teach you how to do this. The first thing, and it's going to sound funny, is I would recommend not saying the word gamification to somebody that's not familiar with what we're here talking about today. Right? Think about this as behavior management. The last thing that you want is your CFO saying, gamification, you know, John just wants to put Tetris on our website, or Mary just wants to create Farmville on our website. We're not going to do that. We've got other priorities that we need to focus on. Tyler Altrip from EMC rolled this out, and when he did so, he did it without using the word gamification at all. But what Tyler did is he went to a CFO and he said, I have an idea for a program. We've made a big investment into Jive to get collaboration amongst our employees. We made this big investment, but people aren't using it. So what if we came up with a way to reward these people and to recognize them and to motivate them? So he created this recognition awards motivation program called RAMP. And he sold this idea of RAMP in so well that his CFO went, this is fantastic. Can we apply this to our externally facing community in order to get our customers to participate more inside of that community and they can help one another? And Tyler said, sure, we can do that. And he built this program as a way to drive more participation inside of EMC and externally inside of EMC's community. Secondly, this is all about behaviors. Your customers are doing behaviors that have high value that don't necessarily have transactional value associated with them. A good example is we work with an electronics retailer, and this company came to us and they said, for every 1,000 shares on Facebook, we sell a television. And we know that a television costs about $2,000. So for every 1,000 shares on Facebook, we make $2,000. Can you increase that for us? The behavior that they wanted to drive was that. And it became a really important thing because it's hard to go to an individual Facebook share and say, what's the value of that? But if you can tie this back to the accumulated value of all of those behaviors, you create an experience for your users where they understand that value and you can start to sell this in a more effective way. Third, this is definitely more than points, badges, and leaderboards. If you put a leaderboard on your site or if you just slap some badges around, the program will fail. I can almost guarantee it. I think that too many companies race into, I want to create Foursquare for my XYZ business. Ultimately, people get tired of that experience and it doesn't work. But what we can do, and what Richard was talking about earlier, is tapping into the psyche of the individual. What really truly motivates that person? We talk a lot about the 4 S's. right? How do we make an employee feel smarter? How can we make a person inside of your community feel smarter and more engaged with that experience? If they're smart, if I know more about Java programming and you've recognized me for knowing more about Java programming, can you recognize me by making me feel more socially valued? Can you give me an experience where I take my knowledge about Java programming and I apply it into this community in order to add more community value or more social value to the experience? Create a feeling of success. If you've ever learned to play a sport, right? When you kick that first goal, when you get that first shot over the net, when you hit a good shot in golf, that little tiny trigger of success is what keeps people coming back for that second time in order to become more accomplished. I also had kind of a similar graphic, but I figured you guys would kill me if I didn't use that kid for success. And then finally, a program needs to be structured. Right, you need to create an experience where you're putting people on this roadmap to success. You're giving people very explicit guidance of what it is that you want them to do. So those 4 S's, make them feel smart, make them feel successful, make them feel valued socially, and give them a very detailed structure of what it is that you want them to do, is going to drive this program to more success. The 4th thing that you can take back with you when you go to talk to your boss, talk about hard value. Don't say, oh, you know what, if we get 200% more reviews, that's going to be a great thing. Talk about what 200% more reviews actually means to your company. For every 6 reviews that we get, we sell 1 widget. Then you can start to extrapolate what's the value of that widget and tie it back to the return on investment of this program. But the good news is that this is everywhere. I have the Nike Fuel Band on my wrist. Please friend me. I have a Toyota Prius and I hypermile on that. I have the Starbucks card. These programs are everywhere and they're becoming more and more ubiquitous, so it should become easier to sell. And as you continue to sell these, what you'll be able to do is you'll drive this level of engagement that's going to ward off the zombies and will help overcome this engagement crisis together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pues momento de preguntas. Si alguien tiene una duda, mira, allá al fondo. Va para allá el micrófono. Ahí, muy bien, con el iPad. Nada, lo de siempre, concreción. Así da tiempo a más preguntas. Ya está ahí el micrófono.
Thank you very much, Scott. And hi again, it's me, Flavio.
Oh, hey.
Hi.
So he asked the toughest question of all last year, so this will be, hopefully he'll go light on me this year.
Gloops, but I promise I didn't do that. Okay, the point for me is, when you are facing a challenge project of gamification, what are the steps you follow to do that? For example, I don't know, in a kind of knowledge management company, you have to gamify them, and then what are the steps you follow to gamify them? You send first the analyst, and second one you send the game designer, and the third the programmers. I don't know. I'd like to know what are you doing?
Yeah. So if I want to make sure I want to play back the question. What's the process to build an experience for a company?
Yeah, exactly.
More or less, right? So generally what we look at are a number of things. Number one, we look at who's the audience and make sure that we understand who we're actually speaking to. Number two, there's some things around, is this a voluntary experience or is this a mandatory experience? We look at, is this a solo experience or a social experience? Is this an extrinsic motivator or an intrinsic motivator? Is it a competitive experience or is it a community experience? So we look at a lot of these different experiences to help create what the right gamified experience should be that you can take out to your clients that's going to drive the deepest level of participation.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, I have a book for you. As the person who raised their hand fastest, I have a book for you.
Wow, thank you.
So
thank you very
come
much,
find me
Scott.
afterwards.
You should have said that before. They would be
I know, right? So it's...
Yeah, we leave it there. And...
Okay.
Perfect. Okay.
Hay más preguntas por aquí, ¿verdad? He visto una mano levantada. Mira, aquí. ¿Micrófono? ¿Está en la sala? ¡Ah! Nos han dejado solos.
Right here?
Ah, sí, está aquí. Mira, puedes levantar... Aquí. Perdona, que no te había visto. Ahí va.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. It was great.
Thank you.
First of all, I would like to ask, at the end you said that by engaging people more and more in the real world by all these different kind of applications, you enhance the motivation, the long-term motivation but is this really the key, or I think there's something missing out for the long-term motivation in those gamificate applications?
So I think a lot of it goes back to those 4 things that I was talking about. If you can create that experience that helps make somebody feel smart, socially valued, successful, and it's a structured experience, that's going to last a long time. We can get into a long kind of philosophical discussion about how long does somebody last inside of a community. So if you think about, you live in a community now, the neighborhood that you're in is a community. You are part of a community because you're interested in particular hobbies, so you're part of the golf, guitar playing, learning a language, whatever it might be, community. As you create these experiences, it's important to think about what's the average length of time that a person spends inside of that community. If you go to university, your length of time in that community might be 4 or 5 years, so building out a program that lasts for 4 or 5 years that triggers those motivators. In the case of Samsung, the example I used earlier, they know that the average person buys a TV every 5 years, buys a phone every 2, buys a tablet every 3, and a camera every 3. They know that shopping experience is about 6 weeks. So the program that we helped create for them was to drive participation and engagement for about 8 weeks. So extend that a little bit longer, but it's hard to imagine somebody coming back to Samsung when they have the phone, the TV, the washer, the dryer, and so on and so forth, that they're just going to be these rabid Samsung fans. There's a few of them out there, but it's not realistic to expect 100% of the audience is going to be there.
So gamification is limited for a certain amount of time.
I would say the opposite of that. I would say that people inherently have a limited amount of time in a community. So think about every community you've ever been involved in. At some point the interest in that wanes, whether that's 50 minutes or 50 years. At some point you fall out of that community and you lose the affinity for that, but new people are coming in and you can drive those new people to participate the same way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
¿Habían más preguntas? Aquí delante.
Hi. What size of clients do you work for? Are very large companies or?
Yeah, so all size of customers. So what we find is that we've got some companies, Sneak Peek has 14 employees, but they have a customer base of several 100,000 people. And we work with kind of global 50 companies who apply this inside of their organizations in order to drive employee participation. So it has less to do with the size of the company and more about the size of the community that you're trying to drive and the engagement that you're trying to get over.
Pues si habría tiempo para una pregunta muy cortita, muy bien.
Hi, Scott.
Hi.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
Have you ever been working on a business-to-business context with Batchel?
Absolutely. I think that the EMC example, where EMC applied this to their Jive community in order to drive participation amongst the community, is a really good example of B2B. Most people don't play with EMC unless it's a mandatory part of their job. But what we're finding is that as people build up their reputation inside of the EMC community, that becomes something that those people can monetize. It's actually something that people are now putting on their resume. It's not just one, I put it on my CV and say, I'm an EMC expert. I can put it on my CV and I can say, oh, by the way, look at this. Inside of the EMC community, I've reached this superstar status where that becomes something they can take with them and use at different companies. And they're actually using it to leverage higher salaries.
Bueno, venga, la última. Pregunta Twitter.
We have 1 minute?
And that's
okay.
it. So very fast.
Okay, thanks very much. In our company, when I work for Deloitte here in Spain.
Okay.
Oh, they turn your mic off?
Okay. Do you listen correctly?
Yeah.
Okay. I work for Deloitte here in Spain, and we were engaging in a social platform. I think it was Java. And we found out that people in Spain, usually they don't like to engage in this kind of experience, where in the United States, everybody joins the community and share and talk to each other. Is that a known fact? Do you know if people from different countries or different cultures have different approaches to gamification?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, did you say Deloitte? Okay, so Deloitte's actually a pretty big customer of ours, so I would love to chat with you about how they're doing that. I think that the important thing to think about is what's the dialogue and what's the conversation that you're having with the user. The easiest example that I can use is in most of the world this means okay, but in Asia it's very offensive. right? So you wouldn't use that gesture in Asia because you know that it's offensive. So the same holds true. It's like, okay, what are, if you have a community of people that don't like to use Yammer, let's look at the deeper root of, number one, why aren't they using Yammer? Most people think that Yammer is a great tool for collaboration and communication. So what is it about this audience? Are they just nervous that their boss might see something and that triggers a response? And the easy way to do that is just to get the CEO or the partner in the region to start using it. The other thing is to look at, okay, well, what is the motivator for this audience, and how do we drive that participation? At a company like Deloitte, what we're seeing is reputation is the biggest driver of all. Right? People want to build their reputation because if you're here in the office in Madrid, but your career aspiration is to go to New York or to go to Melbourne or to go to San Francisco or wherever, how your reputation inside of this experience can be transferable over to the other sites.
Okay,
so cool.
No, I'm not going to look anymore. If
Okay.
there is a hand up, no questions.
Okay.
That's it.
look
Okay,
at-
thank you very much. Un fuerte aplauso para Scott.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.